Welcome to EdUp Curriculum. I'm your host, Nicole Poff. And today, I know I always say I'm really excited about the guests, but I really am excited about the guests again. Um, Today we have Teri Herron with us, a dear friend, so much knowledge, it's insane. I'm going to let her introduce herself and then we're just going to kick off the conversation. So, Teri, thank you so much for being here. If you could just share what you want to about yourself and all that you bring to the world.
Oh my goodness. What a loaded question and fantastic way to just toss the hot potato. I love it. I'm Dr. Teri Herron. It's always so nice to use your title, right? I've been higher education forever. I had my first teaching job very precociously at 25 in 1998. Oh God, don't do the math. You'll know how old I am. um, but I have been a faculty member. I have been a performer. I have been a curriculum designer. I have led curriculum teams. I've dabbled here and there. I've won some design awards. I mean, I've had kind of a weird, wonderful experience, and ultimately, I've built some beautiful relationships with folks like you and others just across the board. And I'm just really, really thrilled. I think if I had to sum myself up in a single word, I would say I'm a teacher. Secondary title, I would say I'm a colleague. I'm here to help. That's really what I am. I'm here to help. So that tells you absolutely nothing about me.
Except it tells you nothing and everything all at the same time.
I hope so.
I would add to that too, the third thing is like a dream, uh, not giver, like you like help people achieve their dreams. What is that? What would that be
Oh.
called? God? I don't know.
That is
What
too
is that?
high a praise, but we are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really what I do always hope that what I can do for someone is to help them dream maybe bigger than they've done before, that I can bring them into my story and show them a world that maybe they didn't know existed. That's always my goal. That's my aspiration. Sometimes we get there and sometimes we don't, but we always take a journey together, and that I think is amazing to me because I think especially in our really technologically based world, what we forget is that we are human and we are person to person. And I think that if we can use the technology like we're doing today to really, over the many, many miles that we are away from one another, to really reach out and to have a true conversation or to have a true connection, that's what I'm always looking for.
And that is you. That is, I remember one time, I mean, just what, a couple weeks ago, I was stuck and I talked to you and I was like, oh, I'm unstuck because I just wasn't dreaming big enough, right? I just was stuck in this like very linear way of looking at how I solved the problem. And you encouraged me to like take it up a level, dream, figure out kind of the most ideal state. And from there, I was able to work it back down. But I was stuck. And I think that is you to a
Oh,
T. Like, I really do. You can get people out of this, we're stuck here, and you can get them up to where they want to go.
gosh, what a compliment. That might be one of the kindest, not nice, I don't believe in nice, but one of the kindest things that anyone's ever said. And it's not our fault. We all get stuck. We all get stuck in a rut. We become accustomed. It's our hedonic adaptation. It lets us live in high stress. And goodness knows we've all been in high stress for a long, long time. High stress, high stakes situations. And you know what you know. And it's not so much falling into a rut as grooving a path, right? You get into a groove and a groove feels good. even if that groove isn't the best possible groove to be in or the most productive or the most efficient, it's what you know. And it makes us question ourselves. And I think one of the things that I have always been super grateful for is that my background as a musician and specifically as a singer means I have a unique instrument in the universe in time. Like what's in here, nobody else can have it. I can't give it to you, but I can show you the ways in which you can experiment with your own talents and your own gifts, and we do it in a way that isn't judgmental. Like, yeah, we're going to critique and that's okay. It's part and parcel of it. And yeah, we're going to look at feedback and yeah, we're going to get better. But it is always this sort of grace situation where you're always trying. That's the measurement we use. And you always know there's more there. And it's just this experimentation. And I've always been very grateful. It's a terrifying thing to be to be a musician. It's a terrifying thing to be a singer, but it's also freeing because you understand that you're living in this moment where you're creating and then you're going to look at it and you're going to do it again and again and again. And every time you do it, you can be bigger, you can be more. And I think that because of that, when we talked a couple of weeks ago, what I could see is that maybe you just didn't see yourself from the outside anymore. And that's the hardest part. It's just giving yourself permission to say, I can do more. I can be more. This is okay. Yeah.
Totally. And I think in higher ed, like that is us, right? We feel the pressure. We're kicking off a course or we're designing a program, right? We feel the pressure. We know what criteria the university would use to judge this as successful. And so we look at it from this little box, afraid to experiment, right? Afraid to kind of play around with some things because we're going to live in the safe spots. And so when I asked you originally, like, I mean, I'm just going to say this to listeners, Teri can talk about anything. When I was, typically when I have guests on, I think I want to talk to them about this specific thing. Teri, I could have a list of 100 things and Teri and I could talk about all of them. And I probably will have Teri on again to talk about some of those list of, really important questions. But Teri, I had said, what do you want to talk about? What should we talk about? So instead of me trying to explain it, I want you to explain it. What are we going to talk about today on the podcast?
Oh my goodness. Ticket shot. I love it. Straight across the bow. Um, I would like to talk about opportunity. I would like to talk about the way we frame ourselves when we think about design. And that I think when we put our own blinders on. So just what you just said, when we look at creating a course, we look at a series of requirements and we think of that as the whole thing. And I think also the other thing we do is we get ourselves into this terrible thought that we have to do all of it at once. So I'm going to disgorge this entire course, or I'm going to disgorge this entire program. And we look at the series of requirements like a checklist and we tick them off and we go, we're done. And the funny thing is, if we think about it, the way we might teach it, right? So all of us are teachers. A lot of us are faculty coming into online course design with no training to do that. We have all sorts of training to teach on ground, but then, we're handed a checklist and we're told, go put your course online. That's horrifying. I've actually been in that situation. No training to build an online course, but I had other experiences. I'd worked 10 years in academic libraries and I knew there were ways to do it. And I also had my performance background. So I had a mindset that said, okay, well, this will be iterative, right? Like I'm going to do this and then it's not a colossus. It's not like I'm one and done. I'll do it and then I'll figure out what works. So that framing mindset of how we approach design is really how I'd like to frame this conversation, if that's okay with you, madam.
I think that's perfect. I think that's perfect, especially too, because I keep having this conversation all week. I've had this conversation with people where they say our faculty and our instructional designers don't want to work together. Our faculty know how they want to design the course. We don't need an instructional designer to help that, or the instructional designer wants to control the process. And I think what you're offering is we need to rethink this a little bit. We need to rethink how we approach designing of these courses. And it's not a checklist. It's not, here you go, this is the course, it's already written, right? We have to back up quite a bit from where we're currently starting, is what it feels like.
Yeah. Well, even not that far, just one step back, which is to ask, why does one person
Mm.
have to run the show? Why is it entirely on the faculty member? Or why is it entirely on the instructional designer? And what are we really risking if we say, hey, Nicole, you probably have knowledge about tools and things I don't know about. Hey, Teri, you probably have subject matter expertise that I don't have. Why does it have to be a contentious relationship? And why does it have to be a power play? I, as an instructional designer or a curriculum developer, can always say, hey, here's this extra thing that might be really good for your course, right? And as a faculty member, the more open I am to people who have expertise outside of mine, the better off I am, specifically because it's not all on me to know everything. Like, the situation we get into is, as a faculty member, I feel this tremendous amount of stress and responsibility to be everything in the curriculum. And that's just not true. I don't have to be. And it's okay for me to say, hey, I maybe don't know everything about this learning management system, or hey, I really want to do this kind of thing, but maybe I don't know how to. Now, part and parcel of that is going to be looking at the entire landscape and saying, hey, higher education does not encourage you to say, I don't know.
Mm.
That's where relationships hit, right? It's like, hey, if we open ourselves up to the idea that it's okay to not know everything, as long as you know your part, that is all that is required of you. It's also okay to say, I am learning and I am becoming more as a faculty member by opening up the conversation to an instructional designer and saying, hey, if I wanted to do this kind of thing, how would you do it? I don't have to agree with that person as a faculty member. And as an instructional designer, I don't have to agree with a faculty member to be their colleague, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's really it. It's not about owning the process, it's about creating a collaboration. And I think we all know that a collaboration, a good one, is always more than the sum of its parts. And so if we back up one step before we get into the development and we ask the question, what do we want as our end product? And if we can honestly say, and I always say I don't have a platform, I have a plank. my my outcome is true. At plank, it goes directly to the student experience. Like, what is the learner going to get out of this? How is that experience going to be? Because as a faculty member, as an instructor, especially in the online venue, then I know if their experience is smooth and easy, my experience as an instructor, as a faculty member, is going to be smooth and easy. If I can anticipate some issues before they occur, if I can design those in, then I'm going to have a much better experience because the learners are going to have a much better experience. And I'm going to get a great class out of this. And once I've got a good solid foundation, then I can iterate. I can look at things like, hey, I thought this might work and then it didn't. But how do we know what the best possible options are? We talk to the people who have more expertise in the supports, right? We're going to wrap supports around our courses. Well, I may not know what all those supports are. So I'm going to look for my friends, right? I'm going to look for my friends in curriculum development. I'm going to look for my friends in the library. I'm going to look for my friends in career services. And I'm going to start saying, hey, friends, what do you got that what's in your goodie bags this time of year that maybe I could put into my class? And you might find that they don't really have a whole lot, and that's okay. That's okay. So you're no worse off having asked. And that's the thing. I'm never worse off having asked to collaborate, even if they don't have anything or they don't have things that I want to use. The other thing is when we look at these frameworks, they're the ground, they're not the sky. Sky's the limit, right? So part of, and you were talking about it earlier, dream bigger, dream more, ask for what you want, not for what you think you can have. And I know that if I don't know everything about the LMS, and goodness knows I've already got a mind full of knowledge, I don't need to know everything about the LMS. The institution already has people they've hired who have that expertise. I don't need any more stress or responsibility in my life. I've already got enough.
Yep.
So just knowing that there are opportunities and that people actually get paid to help you do that, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Totally. And I think kind of to your point, if we have only ever operated in the LMS in one way, the courses that we've taught, then that's all we know. And that's how we're going to design the courses is, well, I taught this course. There was a discussion board every week. The assignments were essays and PowerPoints. So that is how I will design this course, right? We just, because it's what we know, versus if we
Mhm.
take it up the plank, I love the plank idea. If we take it to what is the most optimal way for a student to experience this activity, this knowledge, insert whatever we're wanting them to do, I'm going to bet that 9 out of 10 times it's on an essay. But we default to what we know, right? But if we actually think, what's the best way here? Let the school figure out how to make that happen. Let the LMS administrator, hey, I have this grand idea. It would be cool if students could do X, Y, and Z. Can we make that happen?
Mhm.
And probably they'll figure it out.
Yeah, and that's the thing, just being open to asking the question. And what I want what I want people to understand is that in general, as a faculty member, you are so discouraged from acting like you don't know everything. You're so
Mm-hmm.
discouraged from being open. And it is a cultural shift. Um, culture eats strategy for breakfast. If the institution is like, hey, we're hands off, this is an all academic freedom situation, as a faculty member, I'm going to bang the academic freedom drum pretty hard. But as an instructional designer who's also a faculty member, right? So it's the terrible mind of Teri H.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that academic freedom doesn't mean the freedom to build a really poopy course. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a terrible course. Nobody is going to have a meaningful learning experience. Everybody is going to struggle. And just because you were free to design something that you wanted didn't mean you knew the best way to design it. And that's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair to the faculty member. It's not fair to the student. And so I do think that part of what we need to do is really think about the people who do superior or excellent design work. There are some faculty members who do it, like they have a natural ability to see and work with technology. And they also are open and willing to ask for additional things. And it never appears as weakness, right? It always
Mhm.
appears as strength when you succeed. Well, what happens if you fail? Well, then all those questions well, people get too wrapped up in the what ifs. What if I fail? What if you succeed? Right? As I used to say to our good friend Mike Kalachi, don't worry, it'll all work out, or it won't. Those are the options.
Yeah. And we'll figure it
So,
out if it doesn't.
right. And that's the thing. So you tried a thing and it didn't work out. So what? Try again. Do something different. Use the work that you have. And that's the other thing I think we forget. I think we forget we've all poured so much time and effort into building pieces or fully online courses. None of that effort is ever wasted, especially if it fails. Because I know as teachers, we all know that it's when people fail that they have their greatest learning experiences. So if
Yep.
you've done something and it has failed, you have learned a lesson. For heaven's sake, our time is precious. Never, ever waste it. Take it, learn the lessons from it that you can, and then put it aside and start with something and build on it. Build in a new direction, build in a new way. You found out that writing that essay was tedious. It was horrible to grade them. The learners didn't learn anything. You've got students complaining. It's like, how come I have to do a quiz and a discussion and an assignment? And to speak to your point, well, that's what was in the template that I was given. So I just said, okay, if it's all in here, I have to use all of it. No,
Yep.
you don't. Give yourself the freedom to experiment, to ask the questions as both a curriculum designer and as a faculty member, or as a person in each role to say, what is the professional relevance of this knowledge? What is the piece that a person could build? And what would they be able to take out into the professional world and say, ta da, I can do this thing? When I was an undergraduate voice major, I did 5 recitals, I did 13 roles. These are the things that I could say in the outside world. I have stamina. I have range. I know the styles. I can perform in XYZ. I did La Cesca and Johnny Skiki. So I can say these are small roles I have done. I'm ready to build, right? So if that's what we would like for our learners, and I know there are a lot of people like the hard science is saying, I don't know what that means for me. It's okay. It's okay. We can talk about what does that mean in your discipline when we make things meaningful, right, to our learners, when we design something that's active, not passive, when they're creating a piece that they can take out in the world, that's powerful. That's meaningful. That has punch and staying power. And that we can really take to our friends in career services and say, hey, rather than having my students create a resume, they don't need a resume in this class. What they need to do is create a financial report, or what they need to do is they need to create a blog post, or what they need to do is they need to whatever it is in your discipline. But there are going to be good and bad ways to do that. And you might know the thing that needs to be created from the faculty side. That's your expertise, but you may not know the best way to do that. Or maybe, as we all have multiple degrees. I have had great learning experiences and I've had terrible ones. We
That's true.
literally had a course that everybody called Introduction to Dreary. It was actually called Introduction to Theory. But this was a man, I never saw his face. When I saw him the first time outside of the classroom, I didn't know it was him because all I'd ever seen was the top of his bald head
Oh my gosh.
as he read his notes. That's how I saw him. He never looked up. He never changed. He had a series. He read it to you. It was what was in the text and what wasn't in the text, but it was all passive. And some people did okay. Some people did terribly. Nobody did well. Nobody. And that was how he had been taught that subject. So that was the
Yep.
only way he knew how to teach it. I'm going to read my knowledge. I'm going to open my brain, pour it into your brain via my mouth. And that's how you're going to get it because that's all I know. Now, that was an on ground class. That would have transferred very easily. Just put the text up, read it, test them. That's it. That's a terrible way to learn that subject. Terrible way.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I've
So just
noticed that
think, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I've noticed
Mm,
that a lot of faculty will approach design that way, right? They're like, this is how I learned. I was a, an instructional designer in an online class, and the SME said, when I learned this, we actually took a bus to an organization and they taught us. So we should do that. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're online. How are we gonna take a bus from all these students, right? But he just defaulted to this is what I know. This is what I
mhm.
know, so therefore we must continue it this way. So how do we get people out of just the space of I know what I know, so I'm going to continue what I know? How do we step, like you're saying, step back one, but then how do they actually do that? Because we can talk about it, right? But it's scary. So how do we do it? How do we step back from what we know and move into what we don't know?
Well, I think you know I'm a big show and tell gal. I like a rapid prototype. I like a conversation and I like a story. So what I do is I typically would say, it's specifically in that situation, we took a bus. Why did you need to take the bus? Well, we needed to take the bus out to this location because this is where they're doing it professionally. Okay. And what did you do while you were there? Well, we did some hands-on activities. Okay. And what did you build? We built XYZ. Fantastic. Is there a virtual location we can send learners to? And or can we create a virtual situation where they would have a similar kind of experience? It's never going to be the same, but that's okay. It's okay. And that's the other thing. Constantly reinforcing permission to step outside the norm, to step outside and to ask the question when they say, well, that's how I did it. Well, is there a law or a professional guideline or a complication that would keep us from doing something similar but online? Because sometimes there is, by the way, right? So sometimes there's an actual legal obligation that people have to go and do field work. Great. Okay. So now we have to figure out how to get them to that point and how to make that happen so that they can do it in their own area. But oftentimes it's just what you said, it's a mindset. So if you took a bus and you did these things, what if we did this? And then you tell them what you can do, right? So it's not so much that people are closed. It's that they don't know what they don't know. And also instructional designers don't know what they don't know. And I
Mm-hmm.
know as a curriculum designer, I am fascinated, fascinated by the discipline. I always want to ask a lot of questions about the discipline. What I don't ask is, what is the best way to do this? I never say that. What I do say is, what would be the normal professional output here? Or in your discipline, how do you typically show that you know how to do this sort of thing? And I do speak in active terms because the way you talk is how people begin to perceive, not do you normally do a test? Don't ask them about what they normally do. Ask them and be genuinely excited about their discipline. In your discipline in the world, how do you do this? My husband's a naval officer. They do a tremendous amount of memos. Like these memos are military speak, they have to have XYZ, but they have to be meaningful. So if I were going to teach somebody to do that, I would have them write a ton of memos. Like this is how you need to do it. Do it over and over and over again until this is slick and beautiful and you can produce an excellent memo. That's great, but that's not how I would show something if I were in a composition course in music,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would say, in order to do this, you've got to write a hymn, set this text. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now, if I know what they're going to do, then I know the content and the learning they have to do in order to be able to do that, right? So then I
Yep.
can back them up. So it's really to get them out of a singular mindset, be fascinated, ask questions, show that you don't know things, and then offer what you do know. Well, I have done this in an interesting way before where we did video conversations. What do you mean, video conversations? I don't have time to do a live one. No, no, no. We did video assignments where each person on each side just had a 5-minute conversation. I'm going to have to speak to a series of bullet points and I'm going to have to come up with the bullet points, or the faculty will say, these are the professional issues you're going to have to address them here, do it succinctly, right? So a lot of our business folks need to learn to talk of the talk to show they can walk of the walk. And that's important.
Yep.
So why wouldn't you give them those experiences and build it in? Now, that's something a lot of faculty members don't know they can do. Every single LMS has a built in video assignment. And then they'll say things like, people don't like to do videos.
Mm.
We're doing one right now. It is
Yep.
a professional requirement these days to figure it out, to figure out how to set up a background, to set up your camera, to get a mic going, to make sure you got the headphones. I love your headphones. I like the
They're
inner
my
ear
daughters.
ones. I love them. I love them. But we're all just sort of figuring it out. So to get somebody out of a rut, ask them a question. They'll
Yep.
answer and have a
Yep.
conversation.
Yes. So two things here. One is I think you've really painted the picture of how the SME is the expert of their content, right? I helped lawyers develop a law program, and I kind of felt like a lawyer after working with them. Like I felt like, I'm like, I know appellate briefs and I know, I can speak the lawyer jargon now, right? But it was really interesting because I didn't know it. But likewise, on the other side, a lawyer doesn't know or may not know the best way to help with the learning of how do you create an appellate brief. And so if both sides really kind of stay in the space of, I am a content expert here, and they approach it from that, and no one is trying to, trump one or the other, really beautiful courses can be created. Second thing, I'm going to call you queen of the questions because something you do so well, and I think this is why you can really help people actualize what they want to do, is because your questions and your ability to ask questions, it's like no one else I know, to be honest. You have a thing, you love to ask why questions, right? That's like your
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Well, because that I was once told the easiest way to find out if somebody really knows what they're talking about is to ask them why. Not what, not how, but why. Um, the fastest way to unmask a fool, ask them why. But why is also, and the reason it's the fastest way to unmask a fool is because why is the most meaningful question. Why is it done this way? Why do you feel like you need to get on a bus? Why is it that you have every single assessment type in every module of your online course? Because if you ask why, you will sometimes get to the fastest and most shocking answer because they were all in the template. I thought I had to use them all
Mm-hmm.
because that's the way I was taught it. So I think it's the best reason, or because I didn't have any other options, right?
Yep.
So those why questions are powerhouses. The what you each will have. The how you each will have, and you can come together to put those together. But the whys are usually your blockers and your opportunities. The blockers, when you ask a why and you realize that it's because somebody didn't have any other tools, or it was always the way we did it, or, I thought because there was every single option that I had to fill in all the blanks. And when people are coming in without support, um, a lot of us are really, really great fillers of boxes, right? If I am
Mm-hmm.
presented with a spreadsheet or a template and it is a series of grids, then I believe that I have, even though I know I don't, I believe my impetus is going to be to fill every single one of those boxes. So, what we need to do is create, as you said, when we come together, and nobody has to be hierarchically over somebody else. That's a liminal space. It's a space between spaces. So here comes the faculty. They are the powerhouse in their subject matter. Here comes the curriculum designer. They are the powerhouse in their subject matter. If they come at it this way, you're going to get contention and you're going to get pushback because, every action creates an equal and opposite reaction. Bang, they're going to
Yep.
explode apart. If we create a bubble where there's fascination, and I am literally fascinated by everything, and that's part of why I ask so many questions. Thank you for calling me the queen of questions. I am genuinely interested in the answers. I feel like you've asked me to talk a lot. And I'm like, I really want to ask you a lot of questions right now. I'm really fascinated by some of this stuff. But but it's really that liminal space, that magical place where nobody has to be in charge. The only thing we're responsible for is our own subject matter expertise. And then we form a conversation. We ask each other questions. We feel like it's okay to not know. And in that case, we learn against our will, right? An appellate brief. I don't know how to do one, but I bet you do. I bet money you know how to write one.
Yep.
Because when we are genuinely fascinated and we open ourselves up to what's going to be the best way for us to work together, now that's an
Mm-hmm.
okay for best ways. Um, but if we're really thinking about the learner, right? The instructional designer is going to have modalities, options, um, thought processes, and a way to put something together creatively that's going to create something that would be different without the faculty member, right? I have been asked, and across the board, I say no. Hey, here's this textbook, build this class on something you're not an expert in. No,
Yep.
no, thank you. I won't do that because I don't have the subject matter expertise to know whether or not the textbook is correct, right? Like
Yep.
I don't have enough. I know enough to know what I don't know. That's the magic of it. And when you come together, create that liminal space, create that creative conversation, it's really built on questions. Why would you suggest we do it that way? Not why would you ever suggest that, right? Or why is this a thing that you guys do? That's a genuine question. And I typically will start my relationship building by telling people who I am. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, not because I'm grilling you, but because I'm fascinated by this subject. And I want to make sure that I have asked enough questions to give you all the hows and whats that we can, so that when you get to the end with this course, you feel like it's really doing things in the right way. And as a faculty member, I'm going to ask a lot of questions like, how can we do this? Because what I'd like to do is this, right? So I'm anticipating whys, but I also listen. I listen to all the questions because I want to know. I want to be better. I've never met a faculty member who said, yeah, I'm just going to do it. I don't need your help, because they felt like they could do it better than you, it was almost always because they didn't feel comfortable
Mm.
exposing themselves as not completely savvy within the framework of the tool. But they are 100% the masters of their content. So,
I think something that you've talked a lot about is this relationship piece. And when I'm designing a course, relationships are king. That is, I mean, Mike Kalaji, bless his soul, that is relationships above all. Doesn't matter. Does not matter if you're going to miss a deadline. Does not matter if the LMS is breaking. That relationship, do not let it crumble. Keep it on a pedestal. And I was on a kickoff call the other day, and within the first minute, they started talking about the deadlines. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. We can't talk about these things yet. I don't even know who you are. You don't know who I am. We've skipped. But I think we don't start there, right? We are starting with the logistical how. What's our deadline? How long is the process? What are the course learning outcomes? What textbook are we going to use? Okay, there's going to be an activity, an assignment, and a discussion every week, right? We start with this before we even know each other. And then we just have created this like machine like process where we're just checking off boxes along the way.
yeah. And I think to a certain extent, you have to meet people where they are. And when people start with deadlines, they're telling you a lot about themselves. And I don't ever fight people who want to start with deadlines, but I do start asking questions, right? Again, it's always a question.
Mhm.
And so the first question I ask is, what are the pressures to meet these deadlines? Who is setting them? And how much wiggle room and or how much comfort do we have in taking a step back at the beginning, go slow to go fast, to make sure that we're aligned in terms of your vision for your program or this course or your vision for how this is going to work. Because what I want to do, and then I'm always transparent, and I always say I'm TTT, totally transparent, Teri. I am. Everybody always knows exactly what I'm thinking. It's on my face, it's in my hands, and I'm also blurting. I'm a blurter. I would
So
never make it in the clandestine services, but I always tell them exactly what I want. I want to make sure that you know you can trust me. That right there. It's not so much that the relationship is king, it's that the trust is king. I've worked with
mm,
people I didn't particularly like, right? Different personality types, and not everybody's going to be your friend. And that's okay. I'm open to that. And I have been mistreated by faculty members as an instructional designer. Of course, some of them are
yeah.
very old guard, and not all of them were exactly the stereotype I think everybody's thinking right now, but some of them were. Um, but the whole thing is, I was always transparent. I wish to be your colleague. I wish to support you. I wish to make sure that whatever your vision is, and I want you to dream big, right? We're all going to have bumpers. We're going to have to pull it down, but don't start there.
Mm.
Start here. Start as deep and as broad and as high as the sky. Then we'll put bumpers on it. But if you could have whatever you wanted, what would that look like? And I can't tell you how many times somebody said to not write an online course. Okay. But if you could have anything you wanted inside an online course, what would that look like? Well, it would look like an on ground course. Okay. And in an on ground course, what are the elements that are sacrosanct to you? What do those look like? They look like this. Why are those right? So
Yep.
that builds that relationship. It builds that trust. And the thing is, I don't have to like somebody, I have to be collegial and I have to trust them. And people do break your trust. They absolutely do. They don't deliver. And that's really where those deadline conversations are important, right? So it's not like that's a part of the relationship. It absolutely is. You can trust me to deliver everything that I have said I will give you if I can trust you to give me everything you say you will deliver. That's that liminal space. So yeah, you're right. Starting with deadlines is a lot of where the conversations begin. But that doesn't mean you can't make the relationship happen from there either. And I love that you're
Yeah.
like, hey, I want to talk about who you are. Absolutely. I think it's so important. It's so important. And even when they start with deadlines, you can still make that happen. Don't ever think that, and not you personally, Nicole Puff. She knows what she's doing. I know she does. But just the general you know, we all feel like, well, if I meet them where they are, then I just have to agree to all their deadlines. I mean, maybe, maybe, maybe you show them who you are too. And that's where that relationship begins. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I love that, thinking about this meeting where I'm like, wait, I want to know more about you. I don't want to talk about the deadlines yet. You kind of flip that of like, hey, I'm picking this up about you as a person that these deadlines are important to you. And so the way
Yeah.
in which I'm going to take that for myself, because that really is honoring the other person, as an individual. You can see, okay, deadlines are important to you. I get that. You don't want to talk about your kids right now. You want to talk about these deadlines. Okay, we can do that, but then let's, yeah, walk it back a bit because I want to talk about you. But I I really like this because I would have been like, okay, wait, stop. We need to go back. But you're right. They're saying that deadlines are important to them. And so to be a good instructional designer or just partner, I need to start where they're starting and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important and it shows respect.
Hmm.
And relationships are built on respect and trust. I don't try to force people to do anything because honestly, you can't. That is a fool's bargain. You cannot force anyone to do anything that they are not going to want to do. What I do is I show them a way to get what they want in a maybe in ways they didn't think were possible because that's important to me. It's super important to me that they get what they want. That's what I am there for is so you get great courses or a great program. I might want to talk about it in a slightly different way. And I'm going to ask for your time. When I ask for time, though, I guarantee there will be a product. And I can't tell you how many times because I used to do a lot of design where there were, well, I have done, let's say that I've done a lot of designs where there's a huge group of people and they're all in a cohort of SMEs. And I say, fine, we're going to get together and we're going to meet for 2 hours. 2 hours? Are you
Don't say that.
crazy?
Yeah.
But when I ask for you to meet with me for 2 hours, we are going to have a product at the end of it that you do not then have to leave and spend 2 hours making, right? We've done it together. I like a large cohort for collaborative design because we're all working together in a single way where everybody can bring their expertise. And ultimately, as long as people know you're not wasting their time, number one, they will trust you, immediate relationship builder. They will respect the process, immediate relationship builder, and they'll feel good and energized. They're going to bring their A game next time, not their, I don't want to be in 2 hour meeting. I have had people shocked, sending me emails saying, that is the first meeting I have ever been in at this institution where we left with something in hand. I really thought that this was some bogus enter whatever their particular term for it was.
Yep.
But it worked. And that's the thing. If you are sure that you can lead a group like that, then lead a group like that. I can, but that's me. And maybe you're not like that. And that's okay. Find the ways in which you work best. Show people who you are. Be honest about it. This is not a tremendously great, like the actual collaborative part, not a tremendously great thing for truly introverted people. Um, Truly introvert, I would say maybe go into development or you can work by yourself. Just hand me your files. I'll make a beautiful design. That's okay. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with being who you are. And if that's what you're great at, for heaven's sake, lean in, lean
Yep.
in. Let the talkers talk it out, build relationships. But if you're also okay one on one, build a one on one relationship. That's okay too. When you go after it that way, meet people where they are, you'll find things out. And people are, we're social creatures. We will respond in kind. So I just, like I said, TTT, totally transparent Terry. I come in hot, somebody calls me and I'm having my afternoon snack and I'll be like, hey, I'll be on camera, but you have to understand you're going to get peanut butter face because peanut butter all over my
Yep.
face, having my apples and peanut butter. That
Yep.
shows somebody that, hey, I'm a human being. You're a human being. The more you show comfortably, um, the more you show your humanity to somebody, the more they're going to want to to show their humanity to you, or they're not, and that's okay. Again, giving yourself grace, and that's what's the most important. I think is
Yep.
you can't force yourself to be somebody you're not. You can only believe in yourself. And when we had our conversation a couple of weeks ago, Nicole, what I saw was this extraordinary woman doing exceptional things and maybe not perceiving it in a way that I would like. But that's not on you. That's on me. So I told you what I thought that you are exceptional, that you are amazing, that you are so good at what you do. And in part, that's part of what I do with the subject matter expert. I am fascinated by them. I marvel at them because they are so good at what they do. And it's not manipulative. It's just honest. It's just
Yep.
I'm being honest with them. And I learned so much. I learned so much when I design for other SMEs. I think it's one of my favorite things. Although I can build in my own discipline, I find it to be the loneliest experience. Even if I
Mm.
develop beautiful classes in my own discipline, I find it very lonely. And I always want people to come in and look at them. I'm like, hey, look at this thing I did. Come on, come and give me some feedback. I'm so lonely in this development.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. I didn't pay Terry to say all those nice things. Just want to throw that
Yo,
out
she
there.
did not. Sorry. It's all true, though. Subscribe.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind. Thank you for your kind. Yeah. Thank you. Um, I know we kind of have to wrap up, but I think we could
Mhm.
both talk about this for like ever.
Oh,
But I hope, this week, the amount of conversations I've had about faculty and IDs just not wanting to work together, I hope this can be a good kind of starting spot for people of just how do we approach these relationships differently? How do we approach these curriculum designs differently? Like you said, we can't force SMEs to work with instructional designers and vice versa. We can't make an instructional designer do things. I mean, it goes both ways, but you've given a lot of good ways in which we can just reimagine how that partnership looks like. And like you said, at the end of it, the students are going to win. The students win when we can kind of put our egos down, put our fear of failing down, experiment like we want them to do, right? We want our students to experiment so we can model that behavior for them. But ultimately, the people who lose when we don't work well together is the students, and the people who win when we do work well together are the students. So thank you, Teri, for being on here, for sharing your never-ending knowledge with us because it never ends. I am so it doesn't. I learn so many things from you all the time. I learned things today that I'm going to change about my approach. So thank you. And I'm sure the listeners did the same. So truly, truly, thank you for spending time with us and just sharing these bits of nuggets with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me and thank you for the conversation. There's nothing I love more than to talk with a colleague and to share. This is always exciting for me, and hopefully some of it is useful. And if it is, that's wonderful. And if it's not, that's okay.
It all is. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Teri. I'll talk to you later.